Last time we were recording this, I think we were talking about the progression of the sport in the early 2000s once you joined, like you and Travis Pastrana and everyone, and like how fast the sport was growing at the time, and just all the tricks you guys were learning and doing.
Yeah, it was such a cool time. I mean, the sport wasn't even really a sport yet. Freestyle motocross was just kind of an idea and things that racers did in their downtime, and they couldn't quite make it in racing. Kind of started seeing this, and no offense to them. I mean, if I was 5 years old, I would have been in the same boat. Traveling in a van, trying to make supercross names and motos out, of course. Working in the off season, but once the steam kind of picked up with, Travis, Metzger, Kerry Haar, Deegan, all those guys, I started seeing just this kind of thing start developing. And I was already doing, heel clickers, 250 cans on my 80 and getting on the 125s at about that time. And, I actually kind of just became like the local freestyler guy. And at that time, it's like we're saying it, in 2021, but this is probably 1997, 98, 99 that I'm talking about. And, I was a subscriber to Dirt Rider magazine. My dad subscribed to that. He's a trail riding guy, so I'd wait for that every month. But it was kind of like during the time, I don't know if you guys remember this, but by the time the magazine came out with the article in it of the race, whatever, if you were lucky enough to catch the race on CD or tape it, you already knew. By the time the magazine came out, you already knew what had happened at all the races, and it was so far behind, you couldn't just Google something and look at an image of freestyle motocross or how to do a Superman seat graph. So this sport kind of was just coming out of nowhere. It was just like this creation of all the riders basically, and around locally, I was kind of getting some attention as being that racer kid that also did tricks, and I started getting a little bit of money, a couple $100 or entry fees paid if I'd go do a jump show over the finish line jump that little stadium arena crosses and stuff like that. So I kind of started, freestyle motocross that way and thinking man, this is kind of a way, my dream my whole life was to be a dirt bike rider and a racer. That was the avenue. That was the avenue for you to take if you wanted to be a racer or a dirt bike rider was to be a racer. So I started kind of seeing I can at least, race for free by doing the jump show, by doing, freestyle motocross and stuff. So, that went on for a couple of years, and as I started progressing, I met with a couple of the riders in Arizona. Kind of the same thing doing Jeff Detzer, the Disler brothers, and they convinced me hey, you should send in. They'd already done a contest with you, and they said you're definitely good enough. Send in the VHS tape. So I literally did. I had my dad video me on a shoulder-held VHS cameras, and in Pace Motorsports at the time, which is now failed. Same company, it's just changed names over the years. But started doing contests, and it just felt like now looking back over it, I just got into the sport at the perfect time. The biggest trick was like if you were doing a Superman seat grab and your feet were above your head, you were going toward a heart attack. That was, if you did a double grab, the crowd was going to come out of the seat, And I just kind of got to the sport as I was kind of coming, into my own as I was growing up on the 125s, starting to get on 250s, and I got into the sport when it was manageable. If I or took an interest in freestyle and front flips were already there and double back flips, that's a bit of a milestone. That's a bit of a mark to try to achieve. But back then, I didn't need an at-home course. I had a local ride spot, and I'd go riding, once or twice a week. But, it was manageable. Seat grabs, cliffhangers, bar hops, heel clickers, double knack knacks, all these things. And it was just every weekend was a contest, pretty much every weekend. I was sophomore in high school when I started doing pro contests. It was so much fun. I was leaving every Thursday, flying out every Friday, and riding this on the weekend, getting back on Sunday or Monday, and every weekend someone would do something. Someone brought a holy grab last weekend, they're going to be doing a holy grab to no hand or lander, or something. It was something was being invented new as far as trick wise. Every weekend the sport was just growing. There was always more tours, more you could contests. now I'm talking like early 2000s with the New Tours and Rebel X Fighters, X Games, and X Games started doing world rounds. And, by this time, backflips and threes and double backflips are becoming, normal. But I just feel so blessed that I got into it, First off, when I was, that young age, I was willing to do anything to make it. I was willing to, go without anything or do anything to make my dream come true. And like I said, I got to grow with the sport. I got to see the first backflips landed and rode away from it. And in that moment at Mike Metzger's house, and I always credit Kerry with the first flip, even though he didn't right away. I credit him with the first flip.
Yep.
Watching that stuff go down at Metzger's house when he was going through that process of learning to flip, it was just I was able to see it all happen and learn from that. It's still not as good as today. You can YouTube 100 guys doing backflips and look at the proper form, but I was just able to get in at that time and learn and grow with the sport. So it was a decade and a half where it was just basically felt like I didn't breathe for like 15 years. I never really failed. It was just on to the next one. I mean, if I had an injury and a surgery, it was as quick as I could get back on the bike, within reason, within safety and all that. I was back on the bike, learning tricks. And that came from really, as I said, the sport was growing so fast. I'm like, man, I've been off the bike for, 3 months or 6 months or whatever. I literally thought, I may never catch back up with how fast the sport's growing, Looking at guys that I didn't even used to worry about. And now I'm like, dude, they're doing seat grab flips, they're doing cliffhanger flips. I'm like, I have so much ground to cover. So now we look at today, and some of those tricks are, like filler tricks. Like when I watched X Games this year, it's like, from my day in freestyle motocross, basically, Harry Bink, Rob Adelberg, Josh Sheehan, Luke Ackerman, these guys are amazing riders, but they just did, 10 best tricks in a freestyle run.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm an old guy now, but my career was 50 years ago. It was, it was 5 and 10 years ago. I was still winning. It's like the leaps and bounds the sport has come and always has been doing since it became a sport. It's crazy, man. And it's really kept hot and kept going by, dudes who love it. Look at the roster list at X Games here. And those dudes absolutely love what they do. You can't not. It's too much risk. It's too much work for too little reward to do this sport for anything other than you just love it. So I just feel like, man, I got in at the right time. As the sport progressed, and you had to have a course or 1 nearby that you and a couple buddies went in on and ride every day. For me, it was a foam pit in the backyard, freestyle course, speed and style course, 110 track for fun. It was just my life for 20 years, almost 20 years. I was just literally soaked with it, engulfed with it, and what a blessing to be able to just live that life and be just engulfed in something you absolutely love.